This is the starting lineup. Here's your host, Carl Schoening.
Welcome into the starting lineup. I'm your host, Carl Schoening, starting at the voice coming through your speakers. In the starting lineup with me today is LG, as he's making sure we look good on YouTube, sound good going out over the airwaves. Oh, wait. No, this is an internet-only show. We are not doing a Monday morning show. This is our quote-unquote Monday morning show, as it is just past midnight here in San Antonio, Texas, and they are not going to sleep on Commerce Street tonight. They are honking up and down, military, etc. in San Antonio to celebrate a Game 4 victory for the Spurs. Game 6 will be necessary. San Antonio comes away with a even series, 2 games apiece, heading back to Oklahoma City for Tuesday night's Game 5 by knocking off the Oklahoma City Thunder 103-82 tonight. And, this was a weird game. I watched it all, and I felt like the Spurs had it pretty well in hand from the jump. And this is a game where the Spurs won every quarter. They jumped out to a 9-point lead at the end of the first, 28-19. They won the second quarter by 3 thanks to a Victor Wembanyama half-court buzzer beater, which I thought was sort of a sign indicative of the Spurs coming away with the win eventually. It felt very good about that. Start of the third quarter, Oklahoma City knocked down a 3, and then the Spurs responded with a 15-2 run that forces an Oklahoma City timeout, and the Spurs didn't really look back. SGA didn't even play in the fourth quarter tonight, or, I guess last night. Well, I don't know. I'm a little confused on what time it is, but it is still Monday morning / last night. The Spurs came away with the win. The sun has not risen yet, so I'm still going to consider last night tonight, although that logic doesn't really work the same if we were doing this show at 6 a.m.
It's still nighttime outside, so tonight works.
Yeah, no, for sure. But, is it still nighttime at 6 a.m. when we usually start our Monday show?
No, that's daytime. I mean, the sun might not be out, but I think the cutoff is 5 a.m., 4 a.m. when you switch the day officially.
Sounds fair. Either way, Victor Wembanyama bounces back with 33 points, 50% shooting, 11 of 22, 3 of 7 from deep, 8 of 9 from the free throw line, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, 3 blocks. Victor Wembanyama leading the Spurs. Big shout out to De'Aaron Fox, who had 12 points and 10 rebounds, his first playoff double-double. Also dished out 5 assists. And San Antonio comes away with a cruise of a win, 103-82. I feel like that 21-point eventual margin of victory doesn't quite tell the story of how the Spurs were able to really just dismantle Oklahoma City. And some of it is on OKC, but the Spurs started contesting a whole bunch of shots, and 6 of 33 for only 18% were Oklahoma City from downtown. Spurs do a great job of holding them to 33% overall from the field, 30 of 91, and then keep them off of the free throw line, where Oklahoma City did do a good job connecting on their free throws. They have 16 of 18 on the game. San Antonio, not particularly impressive offensive showing from them, but a great defensive showing from them. They changed up their game plan on SGA. They played him straight up most of the night. They were really calculated in when they sent blitzes. SGA seemed like he was in all sorts of being, not on his particular game. He does only finish with 4 turnovers. It felt like he had 8 turnovers. That was seriously one of the more pedestrian games that you'll see from Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He doesn't even play in the fourth quarter, as I mentioned. Spurs cruise to a setup of a big pivotal Game 5 by winning 103-82. See a lot of people that are already joining in here. If you are watching on our YouTube feed, be sure to like, subscribe, all that good stuff. You might have noticed that I am already on the red wine. I had to pop out a little A to Z Pops brand that you can get some Oregon wines. It's good wine for a good price. And I want to start right there. Greg Popovich might be the person who turned this series around. I got a lot of doom and gloom text messages and DMs and comments from Spurs fans after the Spurs lost Game 3, fell down 2-1, and it's a lot of sky is falling Spurs fans, and those people exist in all fan bases. But I really do think that something I heard De'Aaron Fox say on the NBC broadcast after tonight about how Greg Popovich came in and inspired his team, El Jefe, if you will, really could have been the deciding or the turning point of this series. And here he is with the NBC postgame crew on the court of the Frost Bank Center. I want to leave it up to D. Fox to hear what he had to say.
Thinking the same way.
Before you get out of here, has Pop, with you being down 2-1, or even before the series, has Pop come in that locker room say he needs some nastiness out of y'all? Some nasty?
Yeah, you play here. You play here. We lost game 3, and I think that was Pop's been around like throughout the course of the season, but that was the first time he walked into the locker room and was like, nah, that's BS. That's not how we play basketball. And obviously he has some choice words for it, but that was the first time all season that he came into the locker room right after a game and told us how he felt. And everybody felt that. You know, Mitch was in there, B. Wright was in there, all the players down to the staff. You know how it is after a game. And that's the first time I've ever seen that. Like trainers, everybody's in there. We close the doors.
Let him go.
Yeah, we don't let anybody know what's going on in here, but that's the first time he opened that door. We see Pop come in, and it's like,
The
Pop effect. Well, listen, the Pop effect that are going into every game thinking the same way.
Before you get out of here.
All right, that'll do it. That was De'Aaron Fox talking about perhaps, I think, a turning point that happens behind the scenes. So I appreciate him giving us a little look behind the curtain into the Spurs locker room when Greg Popovich came in and sort of righted the ship. That was a very, I guess I understand why Spurs fans were deflated after Game 3. The Spurs thought that they had all the momentum after the first game of the series. They felt that maybe the D-Harp injury in the middle of the game and not having De'Aaron Fox in Game 2 in Oklahoma City was sort of a, you know what, that's okay. We did what we wanted to accomplish, and we took home court advantage. Game 3, Spurs lost that home court advantage, reclaimed by the Thunder in pretty convincing fashion, not just because of SGA, who had a pretty good game, but all the other role players for Oklahoma City. So what I think happened there was you had a sort of galvanizing of the Spurs because De'Aaron Fox just put it out straight. It seemed like the first time that something like that had happened. Message delivered. El Jefe comes up with a clutch comment once again. We remember, I believe it was in the Trailblazers series when Pop came in and spoke to the team. And, you know, just having him in the locker room, being a voice of reason sometimes, being somebody who can light a fire under the Spurs, I thought that that was all great to hear about what De'Aaron Fox said in the post-game show. Few things that I thought were interesting about the way the Spurs changed up their game plan tonight. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, like I mentioned earlier, was not getting double-teamed pretty much instantly. There seemed to be a very much figuring out of the Spurs that happened when SGA was able to just say, okay, well, I'm going to wait for y'all to bring that trap. Once you commit to that trap, I just find that open shooter. And that really was a recipe for success in that, I believe it was 44% from three shooting evening that Oklahoma City had in Game 3. I don't have that box score in front of me. I probably should pull it up. But I do think that the defensive game plan got stale, and the Spurs weren't going to change it up too much there in that first half or in that game 3. But the Spurs changed it up, especially in the first half here against Oklahoma City, where SGA was played straight up for the most part. That changed up a lot of passing lanes. That led to a lot of passes that SGA had to sort of make out of reaction because he was getting cut off by several defenders. The Spurs were switching. They were making sure that SGA was covered. He had a lot of good defensive efforts thrown at him, and he ended up being a little flustered. I thought there were some turnovers that were not very SGA-like, and I think that San Antonio essentially comes away with what is a cruise of a victory that both teams sort of needed to not have to both. I'm sure Oklahoma City would trade the rest that they got in the fourth quarter for a 3-1 lead heading back to Oklahoma City. But the Spurs and the Thunder did not have any of their starters play in the fourth quarter, or at least not much, I should say. For Oklahoma City, they did not have too many starters play. And the Spurs did have De'Aaron Fox out there just sort of seal the deal. I want to give a big shout out to De'Aaron Fox. He is somebody who missed the first 2 games of this series, clearly was not 100% in game 3. I thought he looked really good tonight, grabbed those 10 rebounds, and was somebody who we miss his burst of speed in those first 2 games, getting past defenders, being able to finish shots pretty cleverly, and all of those things that really helped the Spurs out to the victory tonight. I do want to hear from De'Aaron Fox first. He was at the post-game podium, and we covered his pregame thoughts on Spurs Radio Game Night, what he had in shoot-around. I want to now play it here on the Starting Lineups YouTube feed of what De'Aaron Fox had to say after this one here against the Oklahoma City Thunder in the Game 4 victory for the Spurs.
De'Aaron, you talked this morning about contesting perimeter shots. You guys held them to a very low percentage. Was it as simple as that, getting out and contesting, or was there more to it?
I mean, it's never just black and white and that simple. But we contested 91% of shots today. Like, that's just a recipe to win a game. And if they make the shot, like I said, like tap them on the butt, they made a good shot. But we're just trying to make it as difficult as possible for them to score, especially in the half court. And I think we did a good job at that tonight.
You were the team's leading rebounder tonight. And playing on that ankle, what went into that?
Just being in the right spot. I don't know how many of them I actually jumped for, but I mean that's half the battle. There's instincts. There's some guys are just physically capable of playing defense, and then a lot of it is just being in the right place at the right time. And I think as a team, a lot of times we're kind of all 3 or 5 of those things. For me tonight, it was just continue to try to be in the right place.
De'Aaron, on does the ankle side? Does the ankle feel a little bit better after a win like tonight? And then number 2
no, it doesn't. No.
And then as great as you guys were defensively, offensively, it felt like, especially from beyond the arc, you guys left some meat on the bone there. Does that bode well going forward that you can win a game like this without? Again, as good as you were defensively, without shooting the ball especially well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we were great offensively tonight. I think the one thing that we can really take from it is the fact that we only had 12 turnovers. I don't know how many we had last game, but I know the first 2 we were averaging like 20 turnovers a game. So being able to do that bodes well. Just being able to get a shot on the rim, it gives us a chance to offensive rebound, and it just gives you more possessions. Every time you turn the ball over, those are just the demoralizing possessions, especially with this team. Feels like they pretty much score off of every turnover that you have, and that fuels their offense. So us just being able to get shots at the rim helps us.
Yeah, De'Aaron, it's been a theme all season that Steph likes to take on the best opposing defender or guard the best player on the opposing team. Obviously, Devin said that it was a team thing, which you guys did with Shea tonight, but when you kind of just break it down, how good of a defender is Steph Castle, especially when he's guarding guys one-on-one and being a first line of defense?
Yeah, I mean, one of his best attributes is the fact that he wants to do it first, and that's before we even get to what he can do physically. Just that want to being a defender is, I would say, like 75% of the battle. And then obviously, you have your length, your athleticism, your physicality, all of those things. But just the mentality that he comes out with in wanting to guard the best player. And that's it could be a guard, it could be a 4-man. Like he's taking on the challenge. And our job is to, be behind him, helping him, because you don't want to just play guys one-on-one. Like that's a tough thing to do, especially with the spacing that we have in this game. And, they're playing 5 shooters most of the night now. We just want to give him the help that he needs. And other than that, we try to make those gaps, not appear as big as they are. And other than that, that's Steph being Steph. He's keeping the ball in front. He's being physical. He's contesting every shot and just making it difficult. But obviously with Shea, just trying to keep him off the free throw line. Like last game, his 12 free throws, one was fouling him on a 3. I think 2 of them were guys getting up in the air, fouling him, just trying to take out some of those bad fouls and just try to make him see a crowd all night, try to make him, and with his 12 assists, like we were doubling a lot and felt those passes were easy. We just try to show him that it's a crowd and make him be a playmaker rather than, making those plays easy for him.
Over here, De'Aaron, on the note of fouling Shea, did the ref give you any explanation on your foul?
I didn't even ask. I mean, it is what it is. I'm a proponent of never challenging in the first half. So I'm like, even if it was clear, I wouldn't even give it a chance to losing our challenge. So it is what it is. They call the foul, move on.
Yeah, and I know tonight kind of felt like a must-win game. Now it's 2-2. Does it feel like the series is kind of reset? Best of three now?
Yeah, best of three. With the guys that we have in the locker room, the way that we feel, we try to win every game going out there. People would think it's a success that we, went 1-1 while we were there and then went 1-1 while we were here. We want to win every game. We didn't win 60 games this year going on a road trip like, we want to go 3-2 or we want to go 4-1. We've never had that mentality. Every time we step on the court, we're trying to win.
De'Aaron, the urgency of going down 3-1, how much of that was discussed or how much of that is just y'all understood that?
It wasn't discussed at all. We understood that. I don't think anybody walked in the locker room like, we feel like we have a chance to go down 3-1. That's not anybody's mentality. We lost that game, and the next thing for us was we're going to tie this series up. And I think the way that we played determines a lot of the outcomes that we have throughout the course of the season. Like I say, if we're making shots, if we're missing shots, that is what it is. If they're making shots, they're missing shots, it is what it is. But as long as we can make every possession tough on them and we can play with pace, we feel like we give ourselves a chance to win. And if we lose, is what it is. We played the right way. But more often than not, we've come out on top whenever we played our game the way that we should.
Yeah, that's De'Aaron Fox and his post-game thoughts after the Spurs defeat the Thunder 103-82 in Game 4 of the Western Conference Finals. Always appreciate D. Fox and how candid he is. He's one of the better interviews. That's why we like to play all the Spurs, and we want to get to Mitch Johnson and Victor Wembanyama as well. But I'm happy that somebody asked about the De'Aaron Fox foul on SGA, where it looked like he avoided all contact, but SGA fell to the floor, and thus he gets the benefit of the doubt that he also often gets. And that's a classy answer from D Fox, just to be like, I didn't ask about it. I also don't think that we should use our challenge in that situation. He likes those challenges in the second half. And that's almost just something you have to get used to. Like he said, it is what it is, that the Spurs are just going to have to deal with SGA getting a very favorable whistle. There were a few times tonight where it didn't feel like the SGA whistle was distributed to anybody else, but the Spurs do come away with the win despite any of that. The Spurs led 96% of the game. According to ESPN's analytics prediction tractor, the win probability jumped up to, 97% in the third quarter, and the Spurs did not look back after that. And I want to say that I will not fact check De'Aaron Fox on that they contested 91% of the Oklahoma City shots, but that's a recipe for success because there were a lot of open looks in the last two games for Oklahoma City. And I think the Spurs decided, you know what, if SGA goes off and he gets 40, that doesn't really even change tonight's difference of the game too much because SGA also did a solid job distributing and getting the ball passed around to his teammates, and the Spurs then proceeded to contest those shots. And while SGA does finish with 7 assists, that's a lower number than usual. Again, he didn't play a good chunk. He only played 31 minutes tonight, but I loved everything that we saw from D. Fox and the Spurs tonight. Hanover Fist is in here. He is saying he likes what the Spurs saw tonight. Feels like we got this series. I agree. I think that Game 2, it felt like if Dylan Harper were able to play, then perhaps the Spurs could have squeaked out both games in Oklahoma City. Game 3 felt like it was a legitimate OKC get back. That was a lot of great shooting put on by, you see why that team is the way they are. They are so good at being able to hit open jump shots. Tonight is the Spurs making the proper adjustment of focusing in on defense, playing SGA straight up for the most part, and contesting as many shots as they can. So the Spurs, I don't think you can count on 18% shooting from three, but as somebody asked and D. Fox mentioned, there's a lot left on the table in terms of offense for the Spurs as they shoot 39% overall from the field and 27% from three. Not a great three-point and overall shooting night for either team, but there has to be a little bit of, I suppose, regained confidence and momentum by the Spurs going into Tuesday night's Game 5, as that'll be a very important opportunity for San Antonio to win one more on the road in this series and then close this out in 6. The only way the Spurs can close this out at home now is if they win Game 5 and then they proceed to win Game 6. Winning 2 in a row against Oklahoma City doesn't seem like an impossible feat to me. The Spurs obviously won 3 straight against them in December. Very different team. It sucks to have to bring this up, but A.J. Mitchell, I don't believe that he'll be back. Calf strain is not something you want to deal with, and if it seems to be the start of a calf strain and they ruled him out yesterday, well before they could have just put him questionable game time decision, etc., they ruled him out the day before the game, which is usually not a good sign in terms of his ability to be day-to-day. And J-Dub seems like he wants to play. He goes out and he warms up, but it doesn't seem like that hamstring is going to allow him to play well in this series. He only played 7 minutes when he came back in Game 2, didn't play in either game in San Antonio, being questionable going into both games. I imagine that'll continue. J-Dub will be questionable going into Game 5. But even if he can go, what are you really getting out of him? What are you risking if he hasn't been able to be a full-time participant since that Game 1 where he did play in double overtime and he did finish with 26 points. But I think that this game was a must-win for San Antonio in the sense of as must-win as it gets without it being an elimination game, which is an obvious, winner go home kind of situation. So San Antonio takes this momentum off of Game 4 to back to Oklahoma City. And if you're the Thunder, you don't throw it out because you have to look at the way that SGA was played and how they were able to do a lot more. But it feels like one of those games where if we were in the regular season, you would call this one of 82. Bad shooting night, move on from it, on to the next game. In this particular case, it's the playoffs. You look at everything. And, yeah, it was a good win for San Antonio. They're not going to get too high about it as much as they didn't get too low about Game 3. And once again, shout out to Greg Popovich, a little A to Z wine here, Pop's label that I enjoy. I believe grapes out of Oregon. And
I want some nasty.
Yeah, and hey, a little bit of nasty was delivered by the Spurs tonight defensively. LG, what do we got going on in the chat? Who's tapped in here? You guys can follow us on social media. I am at On Air Carl, Karl, at On Air Karl, and he is at DJLG210. And we have people in here on the YouTube conversation with us.
Yes, sir. Hanover Fist is in here. Says, what's happening? Starting lineup clue. My guys fought for everything tonight. I know Jason Elizondo's up in here. He says, I know y'all were both there. Was it as loud and crazy inside the arena as it looked on TV? And yes, it was. I had noise-canceling earbuds in, and I could hear the crowd through the noise canceling. That's how loud it was, especially every time SGA walked into the arena or walked up to the free throw line. The flopper chants were extremely loud. And even before the game, they put the officials' picture up on the Jumbotron, and the boos were just blasting through the arena. Of course, Scott Foster was the head official, the chief official tonight, and he's got kind of quite the reputation. They call him the extender, so I guess he got the message and extended the series.
That's true. In unpopular opinion, I disagree with Scott Foster sometimes, but I'm not going to agree with every official. The majority of the time, I do like the calls that Scott Foster makes. And that's a little bit of, I guess, I mentioned that I think I might have mentioned that on Spurs Radio Game Night with Dan Weiss, that I know that he doesn't have the best reputation around the league. That's funny you call him the extender. But I do think that I was telling Dan before the game, and this did go out over Spurs Radio Game Night, that Game 1 was extremely well officiated. Loved the way the officials played Game 1. Didn't feel like they made much of an impact at all. Game 2, they did not call any fouls. As we all remember, Isaiah Hartenstein was getting away with assault and battery on Victor Wembanyama. Game 3, overcorrection. They started calling way too many fouls, especially in that 50-minute third quarter. Took way too long. And then Game 4, once again tonight, I thought that the officials were essentially non-existent. I didn't think that there were any really bad calls or anything that was unfavorable either direction. But you definitely have your fingertips on the pulse of the crowd because you're at the arena yet you don't get to watch the game. That's got to be a little bit maddening. I know you're getting paid to do such, but
when I'm on the fan cam, I do not get to watch the game because my back is turned to the court during game time. The only time I'm looking at the court is during timeouts, halftime, pregame, postgame. So yeah, I DVR'd it. I'm gonna go back and watch the game and just enjoy the blowout win.
The good news is you don't have to worry about watching the fourth quarter. I think the Spurs had that one well in hand.
I'll still watch the fourth quarter. I'll watch my boy J Mac drain a three, and Lindy Waters.
Lindy Waters,
it's such a great name, Lindy Waters.
Yeah, Lindy Waters. There was a Kelly Olynyk sighting tonight. That was cool.
Okay.
And there was Carter Bryant had some very interesting minutes tonight. I don't want to get too deep into it, but I thought he was very well coached in a situation that previous history Spurs rookies don't always come get to play in. So he was coached really hard by Mitch Johnson tonight. That's only going to make him better. And he was handed a tough assignment guarding SGA. He got yelled at pretty hard, but sometimes that's just what you need to do to these. Is he still 19? He seems like he's a young rookie. I don't think that he's turned 20 quite
he's
yet.
Still young.
Yeah, definitely a young man, and I really like Carter Bryant.
20.
He gives up. He is 20. He did turn 20 this year.
Last year, November 26th, he turned 20.
Oh, in 2025.
So he'll be 21 at the end of this year.
Yeah, he very much thought that he was going back to Arizona, so he was not too involved in the Wildcat offense, and he's not too involved in the Spurs offense, but he is a really good defender, brings a lot of energy and athleticism. He and Harrison Barnes are splitting the reserve wing minutes. So, I thought the Spurs just had a great bounce back night. I want to hear from Victor Wembanyama now. I always enjoy his post-game press conferences. He's very honest. He thinks about his answers. He had an answer. I was cutting up his tape today for the Spurs Radio pregame show, Spurs Radio Game Night. And somebody asked him, why didn't the Spurs, what was the issue with them keeping the momentum after starting off 15-0 in Game 3? And he says, I don't know. I'll have to watch some more game film. So I appreciate him just not throwing out a random answer. But here's what Victor Wembanyama had to say after tonight's Game 4 victory when he spoke to the media.
You right in front of you. OKC to 82 points which is a pretty low number in any game, let alone the conference finals. What did you see that you guys did defensively that was able to lock them down that way?
I'm not going to get into details, but in general, being more disciplined and just trusting the game plan even more.
Vic, it feels like being active defensive in terms of the hands and over here. It feels like being more active in the passing lanes has been a theme for you guys all season. How important has that been to have all five guys being active in passing lanes, being aggressive on the ball, just for a culture?
That's super important, and pretty much everybody would do that if they could trust that the rotations are there behind. But we got good individual defenders, so when we connect individual and team defense, it holds team to low-scoring numbers.
Hey, Vic, when you guys sort of play with that hit-first mentality, what sort of tone does it set, and how does it kind of carry over the course of a 48-minute game?
Feel like we, as with who we are, we need to start games like this. But it really doesn't mean anything for the way it holds. I mean, it helps for sure, but it's a whole nother type of effort to be consistent rather than just hitting first.
Vic, to your right, those of us who watched you kind of mess around shooting half-court shots after shoot-arounds and practices, it doesn't seem like you make a whole lot of those when you're messing around. What did you think leading into that one, going into halftime?
I was just thinking shoot to score. I wasn't messing around at halftime.
said he's really enjoying the adjustments. And I was curious for you in your first playoffs, how much have you enjoyed the game-to-game adjustments as a chess player yourself? How would you compare it?
There's definitely similarities, as in any strategy game. It's fun. It's very fun. In the playoffs, at some point, especially when a series drags on, everybody knows the other team like almost by heart. So it's different. I would say the coaches hold a lot of this load of the chess match. The coaching staff, all the strategy. It's a lot. They do a lot of film. They work really hard.
Vic on the right, you said when you were sitting there the other day, we're going to find out what we're made of in this game. So one, did you wonder what the answer to that would be, and what did you find out tonight?
I didn't really wonder, no, because we didn't do nothing unexpected. But the truth is that we had never been in this kind of situation before. It was our first deficit in a playoff series. And we just responded, but it was nothing amazing. It wasn't magic. We just did what we needed to do, and the series is far from over. We got 6 more wins before we can rest.
In the first quarter, Devin had that block of McCain.
Mm-hmm.
Then he comes down court and feeds you for a lob dunk. Does that kind of sum up how good he's been on both ends in this series and in the whole playoffs?
It's hard to sum it up with just one play because his impact has been all over the floor on all kinds of areas and off the floor as a leader. So summing up his impact with just this play would not be fair to him.
Vic, after the last game, you said you needed to do a better job of essentially helping your teammates, and everyone around the team kind of says that you're hard on yourself. I'm wondering where that comes from, and then, how do you manage the last 48 hours in your first playoff run and not letting that get to you?
I don't know if I'm hard on myself. We all have high standards, and I know I have a lot of responsibilities, but I'm here for it. And yeah, it was better today. It wasn't perfect, but we all of us. I'm talking like the whole organizations. We're gonna have to do things that we didn't sign up for. I'm an employee to play basketball, but I'm not an employee to talk to whoever and find out answers to. We're all gonna do things like that, and that's why, as I was saying, I need to find ways to impact the game in many areas.
Yeah, and Victor Wembanyama did that tonight. As I thought that Wemby continued to be a really good rim protector presence. Seems to be an interesting trend, and this is not new in basketball, obviously. When you are someone who goes after shots as a shot blocker, that means you're essentially leaving your guy to be able to rebound. So that seemed to be something that Oklahoma City took advantage of a good amount of time. When Wemby went after a block shot, then his man was ready to go for the offensive rebound. And I thought Wemby still did a good job patrolling the paint, finished the night with 3 blocks. When you play Isaiah Hartenstein out there and Isaiah is not allowed to be physical, then I think that it's one of those things where Wemby really can do a lot more of what Wemby usually does. Great night for Wemby as he finishes with 33 points to help the Spurs to the victory in Game 4. I'm Carl Schoening along with LG. Happy you guys tuned in here to this post-game show. It's getting a little late, LG. I want to give a shout-out, though, Kid to Kid on Huebner Road. You might be up right now because you have a little kid. They are having their Memorial Day weekend sale. Buy 3, get 1 free. Applies to a full-priced, pre-loved items, mix and match shoes, toys, books, apparel, and more to get your 4th item free. Check out Kid to Kid Huebner Road, proud sponsor here of the starting lineup. It will continue tomorrow all day from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. I don't have a kid. I have a cat. And as far as I know, they don't really have cat stuff. In fact,
but if you did have a kid, they grow up so fast that they
Yeah.
grow out of everything, and it's just useless after that. If you don't have younger siblings that you can hand it down to, you might as well go to kid Hebner Road and sell that stuff, make some money, get some cash. They even do trades too, so you can trade up for some bigger sizes as your kid gets older and keeps on growing.
It's a brilliant business model, not one I would have ever thought of, but obviously, I think that that's great. Where, hey, my kid is not fitting in the stuff that he fit into a couple months ago. Time for them to get new clothes, and here are the old ones that we're not going to be using anymore because they outgrew them. You can maybe keep a couple for sentimental value. Gently used items accepted over there. Kid Hebner.
Yeah,
Appreciate
they do
them.
have
Shout out to them.
a team section over there for sports apparel, and I hear that the Spurs gear tends to sell out pretty quick. So head on over there and check it out before they run out of all the toddler Spurs gear. What do we have here?
This is my kid, Pearl.
Okay,
Yeah, she was all over to the side making some noise and such. So she gets to make her starting lineup debut. Thank you for all of y'all tuning in here. You get to see my kid. And
Jason
she's out of it.
Elizondo's up in here. He says, "Have you guys seen the De'Aaron Fox foul on SGA?" He sent it to us. Would like your thoughts. We got into that a little bit earlier, and De'Aaron Fox actually addressed it in the press conference that we played at the beginning of the show. And he says it is what it is. He doesn't like to challenge calls in the first half. So basically, that's all he said about that.
And that's fine. I think that the one thing that's maybe even helped the Spurs out is that a lot of these moments have gone viral, and that's something that the NBA does not want, is essentially the masses of their audience saying that this is hurting the brand, this is hurting the interest of people who want to watch real basketball and not players falling. I think if there's been anybody who, I guess, has been getting the calls in the regular season and maybe even to this point in the postseason and is not getting the whistle at all, and I love it, is Chet Holmgren. Chet will hit the deck, expect a foul, and he's not getting it. And I love it.
He hasn't perfected the flop as good as SGA has, I guess.
It's something that very much, I guess, he was getting in the regular season. And Chet, once again, is just not really having a great night. Finishes with 10 points on 3 of 8 shooting. 4 of 6 from the free throw line, 9 rebounds, and 2 assists. But the 3 turnovers are worrisome if you're Chet. And I say this a fair amount of times. Chet Holmgren is a mini Victor Wembanyama. When Wemby is not on the floor, or if you're not playing the Spurs and you're the Thunder, you see Chet Holmgren doing stuff that we expect out of Victor Wembanyama. Very much somebody who is a unicorn, if you will. But when Wemby's on the court, Chet is just not as effective. And that's something that the Thunder are going to have to figure out at some point as these two teams look to match up against each other in the Western Conference Finals for the foreseeable future. And maybe not even the Western Conference Finals, because once these two teams get used to the 82-game regular season, there might be a little bit of ease off of trying to get the best record possible and just try and be healthy going into the postseason. I think we're going to see a fair amount of that. But Chet Holmgren very much is used to getting the whistle when he hits the deck, and he does not get the whistle in as much or as often in this series. Doesn't seem to be all that noticeable to me. SGA will still get a good handful of calls, but I don't think that even SGA is getting all the calls that he would like to be given, and that is a lot on the officials. I really appreciate that for the officials calling it, for the most part, pretty good. I'm not going to say they don't miss calls or something.
It's definitely an
better
improvement.
tonight.
Yeah.
Tonight, Game 4 and Game 1 were both very, very solid and great officiating, to where I didn't feel like they influenced the game all that much. Game 2, everybody knows the Hartenstein fouls, and Game 3, everybody fouled. Touch fouls were being called, and that wasn't fun either. So Game 1, Game 4, if it's officiated like that the rest of the series, I like the Spurs' chances.
I do too. And defense wins championships. When you hold the Thunder to only 82 points, this is an interesting stat here. No player scored more than 13 points on either team except for the two superstars, 33 for Victor Wembanyama and 19 for SGA. So a defensive game indeed was played. And if the Spurs can keep that up, they were the best rated defense in these playoffs. If they can keep that up, it's going to be trouble for the Thunder.
Yeah, and I think that, I'm not saying I get it because I watch a fair amount of basketball, and I understand the sky is falling Spurs fans that thought that this series seemed like a big gap between the two teams at the end of game 3, but really the Spurs were able to bounce back and show that this series is still pretty evenly matched. And it really, I think game 5 is certainly far from the deciding game, of course, but I do think whoever wins game 5 is going to win this series because it's going to be hard for somebody to win 2 games in a row in this series. I know Oklahoma City did that in game 2 and 3, but that was a really close game 2. And then game 3 was not as close. So the both teams trading blowouts here. What happens in game 5? I don't know. I feel like the Thunder are going to slightly adjust, but there's only so much they can do when they're short 2 of their main offensive generators in AJ Mitchell and J Dub. And then on top of that, I think the Spurs, if they can do what De'Aaron Fox said they did tonight and contest 91% of the shots that the Thunder put up, then that's a winning recipe for San Antonio. And then neither team had a good shooting night, but if the Spurs can find their rhythm from deep, which is kind of been elusive from them this series, then I think that the Spurs can cruise to another win in game 5. And if they can close it out in game 6, that'll be just an electric atmosphere and crowd on Thursday night, now necessary. We do have one last set of sound I wanted to get to while I refill my A to Z to give a shout out to Pop. Mitch Johnson spoke after the game, his voice probably raspy as always from having to yell over the very loud Frost Bank Center crowd. I want to hear what Mitch Johnson had to say in the post-game press conference after the Spurs defeat the Thunder in game 4, 103-82. Series now tied at 2. Let's hear from the victorious coach, Mitch Johnson.
Mitch, how satisfying is it to get that kind of defensive effort? And what was the key there, especially out on the perimeter?
I think it was the combination of the physicality and resistance along with the discipline and connectivity to still be together in team defense, not just trying to take one guy out or worried about what you were doing with your own matchup.
Coach, what did you get defensively tonight from Steph and Victor in terms of being able to guard Shea a little bit more straight up, and how did that help you limit their perimeter shooting?
I thought the guys did a great job again of just being connected where you're in team defense, and there are times, depending on the situation and the spacing and the circumstances, where you have to continue to move as the play unfolds and develops. And I thought we did a good job of being in, showing the crowd, but then also making appropriate reads and movements off that. And those guys did a heck of a job, obviously, with their dynamic ability on that end to lead that, I guess you could say, just in terms of the resistance and the physicality and trying to make them take tough shots without fouling.
Coach, I think this team was top 10 in deflections during the regular season, but how important is it for you guys to just have active hands everywhere, especially knowing how good this Thunder team is?
Yeah, I mean, it's huge. I think, again, anytime we can turn defense into offense, that's turnovers, that's rebounding, that's, whatever the aspect may be, that's when we're at our best. We can get out and run and play in space and momentum and share the ball. And we did that tonight, and the activity was great. And we're going to continue to need to get better at it as this series moves on.
Coach, your thoughts on the pace that you guys had offensively, and within that, the not being so much in a hurry that you talked about after game 3, kind of letting things settle in and letting things happen naturally as well.
Yeah, it's a conflicting idea at times, but it's the balance that you got to try to strive for in terms of pace and tempo. Doesn't necessarily mean you need to take a quick shot or be in a rush, but when we get to play fast in terms of the ball moving from one end to the other end, then we get our best chance of playing against unorganized defenses and take advantage of mismatches, and our guys' individual talent gets to be at its best with that.
Coach, can you talk about the two-way impact of Devin Vassell tonight and his growth from a role where he was more of a scorer before Victor Wembanyama, Stephen Castle, and the guys came around, to today, like a more complete role in the team?
He's been phenomenal. He may be our most consistent player if you took away any stats and just watched us play. Just his floor and ceiling may be the least margin. And it's just been, personally for me, really fun to observe him, because when we first drafted him, he was kind of a, not to be lazy, but a 3-and-D generalization is kind of the bucket he was in. And he's developed into a heck of a scorer in this league. And at times when you're a young player, it's hard to increase your offensive load and still continue to put that same energy into the defense. And I think he probably went away from it a little bit. And now to see him have the two-way impact that you speak of is very impactful for our team and very rewarding for somebody that's been with him since his rookie year.
Mitch, on your right, when Victor was sitting there after last game, he said that we're going to find out what we're made of in game 4. And then tonight, he just showed a level of persistence he hadn't quite shown before. And he took so many shots, obviously, in the first half, but he never stopped coming and never stopped trying to kind of grind the game away. Just what did you see out of him with the motor that he played with tonight?
Yeah, I saw a lot, and I'm not surprised. I think our competitive response all year has been pretty good, and he's been at the forefront of that more than not. And I think tonight he felt, not speaking for him, but from my perspective, an obligation to set a tone for us in a variety of ways. And I think, to your point of just the aggressiveness, was a reflection of that.
Mitch Johnson, his post-game thoughts as the Spurs defeat the Thunder 103-82 in Game 4 of the Western Conference Finals. I'm Carl Schoening, filled up on my wine again. As I got to give a shout out to Pop for making this kind of A to Z wine and also helping the Spurs in his own way into the Game 4 victory. If you missed it at the beginning of the broadcast, this live stream, I wanted to talk about how Pop came in after the Spurs lost Game 3. That final score in Game 3, by the way, was perhaps the most definitive victory of the series from either team, 123-108. To that point, at least, the Spurs just they felt a little demoralized. Pop comes in, becomes the El Jefe that he is, and provides the Spurs with a victory that is worth a toast to you, Mr. Popovich.
Shout out to Pop, who was in attendance at the game tonight, sitting right next to Tim Duncan in one of the suites. And Pop doesn't like any fanfare, so we don't really put him on camera for everyone to cheer. We'll put other players on. And did you notice I forget their names, the Salation Nuns? The
Yes,
Spurs
I
nuns.
think that's how you say it.
Move
Sister
over,
Salation.
Spurs, Jesus. We've got nuns now.
Yeah, and they blessed Luke Cornett, and I thought that
saw
Luke
that,
Cornett
yeah.
perhaps had his best game of the series. So, that blessing came big, and Luke Cornett joined us on Spurs Radio post-game. And, Dan had to ask about it, but that was a great response. He's a Catholic himself, so
Okay.
I don't know if the Salation nuns are Catholic.
Maybe they can bless Julian Champagny because he's missing his shot. If anyone has seen Julian's shot, he's averaging 7.7 points per game, threw in a whopping 2 points in Game 4, 11 in Game 1, 8 in Game 2, and 10 in Game 3. He needs to start making three-pointers.
And that's just not normal. I hope that Julian can find his rhythm. He's not someone who will ever make any excuses, and he's not someone who speaks to the media too often for us to kind of get an idea of why he's in a slump. But shooters keep shooting. He goes 1 of 7, and that one field goal that he made, he attacked the closeout and got to the rim, and probably should have been an and one if I'm remembering correctly. So, Julian, hopefully shout out that he gets his shot going when the Spurs need it most, which is the last 2 games of the series. Because at least hopefully it's the last 2 games of the series. Champagny gets his shot going, and the Spurs win because of that. We're Spurs homers. I'm wearing a Spurs shirt right now. So if you guys didn't catch on so
Spurs
far,
family, baby.
You're wearing a Spurs hat and Spurs shirt, LG. So, yeah, it is very much a pro Spurs program on here. But, yeah, I would love to see Julian Champagny get it going. And big shout out to De'Aaron Fox and Dylan Harper for playing through their injuries. They weren't even listed on the injury report coming into this game. So that was a very welcome sign to see both of them play as well as they did. It's weird. You look at Harper's stat line, and you probably don't think that he played well, but just having him out there playing solid defense on SGA, I thought that was important to mention. But also at the same time, just having him sort of be somebody who can put the ball on the floor, get to the paint, and pass out of it. I really like what Dylan Harper brings to the table, even if he's not 100%. Finishes
And
with 7
I'm not
points and 5 rebounds.
100%. Apparently, my voice is going away.
Yeah, you sound a little lower raspiness.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Maybe I was yelling too much at the fans and stuff.
Yeah, well, you have to talk over those comms, and when you have to yell into your comms, it hits you. I have some throat tea that I can give you. I do throat tea and honey all the time. You not heard of this? Tea for the throat?
Yes, I've heard of it. I've got some tea. I'm gonna make some as soon as we get off the internet waves here.
I feel like we've been on the internet waves long enough. I'm going to finish my glass of wine and go to sleep. I'm sleeping at no talk show tomorrow morning. Memorial Day, iHeart is giving us all off. There are people who are agreeing to work that time that thought that we are not going to be working. So
shout out to all the people in the military service there for Memorial Day. We appreciate everything that you do.
Yes, absolutely. Everybody who made the ultimate sacrifice for our nation and our freedoms. We really do, despite whatever you might think about our, well, let's not get political, but whatever you think about our politics, we do live in a really great country that allows us to do a lot of great things. But and a lot of that is because of the servicemen and women who go out there and fight for our freedom every day. So shout out to them, and shout out to those who made the ultimate sacrifice as well. 103-82, Spurs come away with the Game 4 victory, even up the series at 2 games apiece. We will be talking about the Spurs and Thunder Game 5 Tuesday morning on 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. slot on Ticket 760, where LG, I'm sure you saw it. Ratings came out. We're the number 1 sports station in town.
All right, hold on. I got something for that. Oh, here we go.
Yeah. Celebration on that. So yeah, we're the number 1 sports rated station in town, and we are.
Gee, I wonder why we start a new show in the morning, and all of a sudden, Ticket 760 is now the number 1 rated sports station in San Antonio.
Let's call it the Carl effect. I do want to give a shout out to UTSA, even though they're done with the games that air on the station. Yeah, UTSA baseball, they made it to the American Conference Championship game today. They fell 1-0 to ECU, but both of those teams were probably going to get an at-large bid into the NCAA tournament. So I guess it's Selection Monday tomorrow. We'll see where UTSA lands. We will be talking some UTSA baseball. I can definitely get Pat Hallmark on. Pat's a buddy.
Do it.
Yeah, for sure. And we will probably also chat with Mike Capps. That'll be a fun conversation. We'll get some more interviews going here on the starting lineup. And hey, thank you, Hanover Fist, for congratulating us.
And SAFC remains undefeated at Toyota Field.
Yes, we have to get into all of that on Tuesday's edition of the starting lineup. This was today's Monday, quote unquote, edition. We see more people joining the show. Hey, let's let it extend for another few minutes. Get your questions, comments in, and we will definitely hit you up. We appreciate Hanover Fist for leaving a comment here. But yeah, we're definitely wrapping up the show and our thoughts after the Spurs win that game. You can also reach out to us on our social medias on X and Instagram. I am at On Air Carl. That is Carl with a K. I don't seem to have any mentions here in my Twitter notifications, although I do see Jordan Howenstein with a cow being abducted by a UFO as a picture in response to the Wemby Nike GT hustles. I saw those
he was wearing those.
He was wearing. Yeah, I thought those were cow shoes. Now that makes sense. That is hilarious, actually. I'm going to retweet Jordan.
So he just released a leopard print version of those as well. So now he's got cows as well. So maybe he's going through all the different animal prints.
What are animals that cows getting abducted by UFOs makes sense? Is there another animal that's commonly abducted by UFOs?
No,
probably
I don't
not.
think so.
No,
Humans.
did you ever play Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask?
Of course.
You did?
Difficult
Okay,
game.
Yeah. Very, very fun yet difficult game. Probably gave me some childhood trauma, really, because that's actually not necessarily a PG rated game when you really look at how dark it is. But what was I getting at with that? Oh, there was a section where you go to Lon Ranch and you fight off aliens trying to abduct the cows. That was a very fun sort of series that you could go through. And it seems like Hanover Fist says, my friend got the new leopard print ones. That's cool.
They're ugly.
Hey, ugly is in the eye of the beholder, right? Like,
That's
they're
true.
not. It's not ugly if you rock them.
I saw one of the Spurs photographers was wearing them today.
Yeah,
So.
I am plain. I will wear black Nikes. I rock with Nikes because I need to wear from the Nike outlet mall. They're the only ones that carry my size. So
I like the D-Fox.
Yeah, you have some cool D-Foxes. They have nice little Fiesta colors to them. We like the alien head emojis in here from Jason Lozano. Hey, we appreciate all y'all for being in here, staying up late with us, celebrating. I hope you're honking responsibly while listening to us, wherever you might be honking. I saw some people. Didn't you tell me that someone was honking in San Diego?
Yeah, there was a post of somebody driving downtown San Diego in the gas lamp district, just hanging out their window while the driver's just honking the horns, and they had Spurs gear on. And I'm sure that nobody knew what they were doing.
No. San Diego, they don't even care about their own sports half the time.
They love the Padres, that's for sure. They go hard for the Padres.
Is there anything else?
I couldn't find a Spurs game there. They have an MLS team now. It's called San Diego FC. Yep. They play at the they play at the Chargers' old stadium, Qualcomm.
Cool.
I think it's called Snapdragon Stadium.
Oh, after one of the processors that I suppose that makes sense. No. That's cool that people are honking all across the world. What do we got here? One last one from Hanover Fist. They were too much for me and got bread lows a few weeks ago. That's my limit for the month. I buy shoes once every 7, 8, 10 months, maybe a year. I probably should be a little bit more into fashion. I am not. I don't know how I get my clothes and shoes, to be honest with you guys.
I just bought the D-Foxes because they were $75, and I had the Dylan Harpers, the Nike GT Cut 2s. They were $200, but they did not fit me well, so I returned them.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is I got to go fairly affordable yet fitting. Fits well.
I felt kind of had like buyer's remorse after I bought them, so they went back to the Nike store at the Quarry, and I'm sure someone got them for a refurbished discount. So good for you.
Nice, yeah. One man's return is another man's happy purchase.
Exactly. I only wore them once, so and not outside my house, so they were still brand new.
Nice, great. Well, hey, we appreciate you, LG, for being up late here and getting this show rolling, making sure we look and sound good over YouTube. We appreciate all y'all for tuning in here to the starting lineup midnight edition to celebrate the Spurs Game 4 victory over the Oklahoma City Thunder. Game 5 will be Tuesday night. Spurs Radio Game Night gets started at 7 on the Spurs Radio Network. Dan Weiss will have your call 7:30. We will talk about it Tuesday morning on the airwaves. Tickets $7.60, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. LG will be there dark and early, all bright and bushy-tailed, though. Happy for you guys to listen in and get my takes as I get to dissect this. LG will get a chance to actually watch the game. He was watching all the fans in attendance, so he wants to actually sit his opinions ready to roll. I will have my opinions. We'll talk SAFC. We'll talk UTSA. I'm sure there's going to be a game 4 for the Knicks. I don't know if there's going to be a game 5 for the Knicks-Cavs series, as that looks like it is all directions pointing towards a sweep for the Knicks, but we still want to touch on that. That'll be the Monday night game. We appreciate all of y'all for coming in here and joining us on the Starting Lineup YouTube. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow us on our socials, all that fun stuff. And y'all have a good night. Honk responsibly, San Antonio. Spurs win Game 4, 103-82 over the Thunder. We'll talk about this game a little bit more Tuesday. So if you have not gotten your fix on Spurs talk, this is your home for the best Spurs talk. Should I say anywhere, LG? Let's say anywhere. Yeah. Let's do that. Let's do that sensationalism marketing. We're the number one home for your Spurs talk here on the Starting Lineup. Y'all have a good night, everybody.